You are listening to Realign Your Life Podcast, where I discuss with you strategies on how to realign your life and move towards the direction you always want to. I am Vivian, the host of this podcast, and every week I will bring value on how to improve and realign your life either through a guest or my thoughts. I can't wait to share what we have this week. It's time to realign your life. Hello there, and welcome back to Realign Your Life Podcast. I am so excited and so very honored to have you here with us today. And I am Vivian, the host of the show, and I've got a treat for you today. Because I know that the guest that we have sharing with us today is going to give you some tidbits and some information about her journey on realigning her life that many of you out there will be able to relate to, or you know someone that will be able to relate to this podcast also. So we're going to get started here today with our special guest. And before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about her. Well, I met her a couple of years ago. We were working at this nonprofit together. And I'm going to tell you something really funny. When she came in and the executive director introduced her, we were sitting in the boardroom, in the meeting room. And I looked and I just kind of glanced around the corner. And after she left and he came back, I said, is she Asian?
I never got that one before.
I think she's African American. I don't know what I was looking at or what I was seeing. But anyway, she's just been a joy to work with. She was a joy to work with. And we have continued our friendship, even though we have both left that organization. And so I want to introduce to you today my friend, Aubrae Corprew. That one of them fancy names. But even though that, I don't know where that name came from. But anyway, I know why. Because she came from New York. She lived and was born and raised in Rochester, New York, up there in all that snow. They always want to come here to enjoy everything we got. But she actually got here to go to college in Greensboro, North Carolina. So she is a graduate of Bennett College. And I tell you what, if you know her, that's all you hear. It's all over her car, all over where the shoes and everything. She's got it. But believe it or not, she majored in biology and worked 7 years in microbiology. But after that 7 years of working in that field, she decided to go back to UNC in Greensboro and get her degree in public affairs with a concentration in nonprofit management. So for the last several years here in Charlotte, she's worked with a development of some pretty large nonprofit organizations here in the city. Now, I'll tell you some funny things about Aubrae. She is a hoot, and I'm telling you, she does some of the craziest things, and she's going to share with you her webpage, her Facebook page, and her Instagram page, and you'll see some stuff on there. But she's got 2 college-age kids, a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old. When you see her, you're not going to believe that she has kids this age. But she really enjoys reading. She does all kind of crafts. And, one of her goals is to be an event planner. So if you got any events out there that you need planned, she's good at that. So you might want to reach out to her. but she really enjoys traveling also, and especially cruises. Oh my God. She is a cruise fanatic right now. And she also enjoys her little four-legged friends. She's got two of them. A little puppy. Well, he's kind of grown now. She's kind of grown now. And she's got a cat. So, Aubrae, welcome to Realign Your Life Podcast. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Vivian. Oh my gosh, you were hilarious with your intro.
So, listen, I am so excited to have you here because you are a thriving divorcee with two college-age kids. And that just recently happened that you are now an empty nester. And sometimes when we find ourselves in those kind of positions, it is truly, truly realigning our lives. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh, wow. So I got separated in 2015. And this was after 15 years of marriage. So that was a huge adjustment. And it really was, there was a lot of navigating to figure out who I was and what I was, where I was in life. I was going to therapy, and what made that year especially difficult. So I got separated in January of 2015. And then in December of 2015, my mom passed. So, and those were my mom and my husband at the time were the family that I had down here. I have two sisters up in New York, and I have some aunts and uncles and cousins here, but my biggest support, of course, was my family there. So that was a huge blow at the start and the end of that year. And so, and I remember talking with a therapist and saying, I've spent so many of my years being, a daughter, a wife, and then my kids were, getting older. They were about 15 and 12 at the time. So I was like, I'm not, they don't need me as much. So the role of mom was changing. And I was like, I don't really know who I am anymore or where I fit in my own life. So, and I remember a funny story is one of the weekends that my kids were with their dad, I was like, I'm going to go shopping and I'm going to get something for me. Cause every time I would go to the mall, I would always get stuff for my kids. And I got to the store and I realized I didn't even know what size I wore anymore because it had been that long since I had bought clothes for myself. And, and so I think I got myself like one shirt and then I got some stuff for my kids anyway. So you can't turn it off that quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was very difficult to start thinking about doing things for me because I had always been doing things for either my husband or for my kids. And it sort of felt wrong, to put myself first. But one of the first things I did after I got separated was I used to really enjoy theater, and being in theater productions. And I used to try to do it when I was married, but it was always this kind of, I'm going to have to be home with my kids, that kind of thing, do you have to do this? So I was like, I have the freedom to do this now. So I was like, I'm just going to start auditioning, get back into the whole feel of it. And so I went on an audition, actually on a whim, and I actually got a part. I was in A Christmas Carol at Theater Charlotte in 2015. I was the ghost of Christmas Present. So so that was exciting. So it was my first step of really getting back in touch with who I was and the things that I enjoyed and just doing something for myself that, may have inconvenienced other people, but that's okay because it didn't take away from anybody's anything. So it's been, a long journey of just little things like that, I'm recently going on like girls trips with my friends because, I don't have to look for babysitting for my kids. Another really exciting thing I did, about 6 months after my mom passed, I went on my first mission trip, which was really, really great. And it happened to be during over Mother's Day weekend. So when it was going to be my first Mother's Day without my mom. So it was a really good place for me to be. I went to Guatemala to work with, oh gosh, what is it called? Hope for Guatemala was what it's called. It's a school for children, like an after school, before school program for children, especially that have to go through gang infested territories to get to school. And so the director of the school had this agreement with the gang leaders in the area that if they saw kids with his name, school tags on them, they leave them alone. And so they were able to get to and from the program safely. So that was a really wonderful experience. And I'm so glad I did it.
Wow. So sound like, you really almost were pushed into jumping back into life and identifying yourself. Well, I heard you say, mention therapy. So what moved you to go get therapy?
I'd been to therapy before, and I do have mild anxiety and depression, so it's not something that was new to me. But after getting separated, there were so many emotions that I just couldn't navigate by myself. A lot of anger. I would just go back and forth between anger and then sadness, and then questioning, where did I go wrong? What happened? Could I have done something different? And so just trying to make sense out of everything I had gone through, because, divorce, it's not like, I need to talk about the fact that I'm divorced now, but it's everything that leads up to divorce. Once you get to that point, there's so many things going on, and, you don't want to talk to other people like family or friends, because you don't want to feel like you're talking outside of your marriage to other people. So you keep a lot of it inside sometimes. And so a lot of people, when I told them I was getting separated, they were like, what? They were so surprised. And, but there's a lot that goes on that people don't know about. And so just navigating through everything that you went through from the time it went bad up until the separation, and then the feelings of, getting divorced. So I was already seeing a therapist, and I always say that this is how I know God loves me. I had an appointment on a Friday, the Friday before my mom died, to go to my therapist. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to go today. And she emailed and it was like, can we reschedule? Because I had something else come up, and do this on Monday. And I was like, that's perfect. And then my mom passed that Sunday. And so I already had an appointment the next day set up to go see her. So I was like, I know God loves me, because he put that
Needed
in.
that. Yeah.
And so I went in there and I was like, my mom died. And I just went into it from there. So, so it's been really great. And I remember talking to her and saying, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not a daughter now. I'm not a wife. I'm barely a mother. And she was able to point out, she was like, you are a Bennett Bell, you're a Zeta, you're a friend, you have your sisters. And so, so it's just realigning, refocusing on who you are. Just because you're not what you were at one point in your life, you still have so many other things that you can be, and that may be even better. So.
That is so good. That is so good. Thank you so much for sharing it, because there are probably people out there that need to hear that. And so it was like, it sounds like there was a double grief, which was really, really tough. And trying to do all of that all on your own it's tough. So I'm glad that you mentioned that you had these support systems in place. So talking about support systems, so what did that look like for you besides the therapist? And I know, having gone through a divorce, there is a sense of shame sometimes that is there too. And like, you take it so personal. What did I do?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And then there's the, why wasn't I enough type of, questioning. And then it was also, there's kind of a sense of guilt, because, I know that my kids are struggling too, and they don't really have answers, and I didn't really have answers to give them. I could give them my side of the story, but you don't want to also paint their father in a bad light because they have a good relationship. And, and you want them to have a good relationship with their father. You don't want too much to change. So it's very difficult trying to figure out how, when you're yourself trying to figure out what happened, trying to explain it, then to kids who, never been married, never been in a relationship, don't understand the difficulties that, you go through in a relationship. So for support, I did lean, I had some friends that I leaned very heavily on. I remember when my mom died, I sent a text out to a few friends. One of them lives here in Charlotte, and the other one's maybe about 2 hours away. And they both came that day, helped me to go get her things and go to her house, and brought me home and cleaned my house while I slept and made sure I ate something. So, just having those types of angels is so good. So, and finding out that you have, more people that care about you than you realize, because when you put it out there and people really step up that you didn't think that you could call on. So, right. So it'll help bring out who your real support systems are.
Lets you know who your real friends are, huh?
Exactly. Yeah.
That really care about you. And you mentioned the children. And so during this whole process of the things that were leading up to the separation and finally, the divorce, did you see, or were you able to observe anything with your children? Were they acting out, or could you tell that there was something that they knew that something was happening?
They definitely knew something was happening, because the weeks before we finally separated were so tense in the house. Like I finally understand the term of you could cut the tension with a knife. It was so thick. Like we barely were talking to each other. We had actually we made the decision to separate right before Thanksgiving. And so we didn't say anything to the kids until after Christmas, because we didn't want to, we didn't want to ruin, Christmas, but that was one of the worst Christmases ever. It was just, there was just no joy. There was no excitement. So, I think that they saw it coming. My daughter actually made a statement one time. She's like, this is actually before we decided, but I knew where it was headed. And, she was like, well, I'm so worried that you guys are going to get divorced. And I was like, I remember she said that. And I remember thinking, I want to ask her, well, would that be so bad? Because I knew we were heading that way. So my son, he was a little bit, not really, really angry, but there were a couple of times where he kind of really was just like, got upset, but we talked through it. And he's really good about talking about how he feels. And my daughter was really struggling academically. She has ADHD, and that's one of those things that is so very misunderstood. I didn't understand it myself until doing a lot of research. So I didn't really know what was happening or how to help her through it, because she's more of the one that shuts down and won't talk. So yeah, it was difficult. But I let them know that they can always go talk to someone if they wanted to, that they had their guidance counselors if they wanted to. If they wanted to go to therapy, I would set that up. I'd let their teachers know what was going on so they would be aware if any kind of behaviors came up, that might be what was happening. But I talked to them about it, and, I let them know they can ask me questions. So
that's good. So in retrospect, when you're thinking about that now, what would you say to a parent or parents that are contemplating separation and divorce, and there are children?
I would say do whatever you can to try to make it work. I tried to, I wanted to do counseling, but you can't do those things alone. Both parties have to be invested in putting the work in. So, but if you really can't, I would say don't try to keep it from the kids, because they pick up on so many things. So let them know, mommy and dad are having some troubles. We can't communicate very well. We can't get along. And we think it's going to be better for everyone if we live separately. Assure them, that it has nothing to do with them. And, I tell my kids that, and I hope I told them that it has nothing to do with you guys. And that you're there for them. Answer any questions they have. Just try to be, depending on the age, they can only understand so much, but just try to be as open and honest about it and let them know that they can trust what you're saying and what you're doing, that it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. So.
Because I know that there are some parents out there or some people out there that feel like they have to hide this stuff from the kids. The kids are so sensitive, and they know, just like we have those intuitions and we know and we can feel something. And when you're living in that environment and you see people like, I don't think this is normal. But, so I know that you and your ex, you co-parent. And so how has that been for you? And how is that working for you and the kids and everybody?
It was pretty good. I always at the forefront of my mind was their happiness and what's best for them. I never was like, you can't see your kids, I pushed for them to see them as much as possible. And we worked together pretty well, making decisions, a lot of it was through text. And as long as we were talking about the kids, everything's fine, but I think we both wanted them to not suffer too much from it. So they spent a lot of time with both of us. And I tried to, include them, like when both of them graduated, when my son graduated, we all went out to dinner, and I was like, my family was in town, and I was like, you guys want to come do dinner together? So we all did dinner together because he's remarried now. And then when my daughter graduated, I had something at the house because it was still kind of COVID-ish. And, I invited them over, and I got those T-shirts, and I included, grad dad and grad stepmom and grad baby brother. So I, try to include them and all that. And for the most part, I try to. The part that still gets me is when the holidays come up, and especially now that they're older and it's not dictated where they're going to go. I hate that they feel like they have to choose. So I try to maybe if we go down to Florida, we can all, because their dad lives in Florida now. And I was like, we can maybe go to Florida. We'll get an Airbnb and then we can see them, but haven't been able to do that yet. But I try to, make it so that they don't have to feel like they're choosing.
Yeah. Well, that I'm sure that's difficult in this situation, but it's also difficult when they get married. You have to choose which family you're gonna, spend those holidays with.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the one part that I really hate the most, that they come home to one place and, and I never wanted that for my kids. So, but, and so
even when y'all were married, okay. So who do we spend Thanksgiving with this year?
Yeah,
my parents and my parents.
Yeah, exactly. So now they've got all different sets now.
Sounds like you guys are doing a fantastic job with co-parenting, and that's so important to be able to have some minded kids, and a lot of times just relationships sometimes don't always work out the way that we intend for them to do, but intend for them to. So I'm just so happy to see that you're moving on with life, and that you have, you've got a wonderful support system around you, and you're getting, and you got the help that you needed. And that, I think that's so important for people that are listening out here to understand. And, that stigma of therapy.
Oh, I know, and I hate it.
Yeah.
So it's, I always say God gave the doctors his knowledge, and, people will take medicine for a headache or anything else, but, it's okay to recognize that, maybe there's something chemical that is not your fault that can be taken care of and help you have a better life, or that you're going through something that's very difficult. I mean, the loss of a parent is tough. It's very tough. And loss of your family and your spouse is tough too. And there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of questions of, what happened? Why did this happen? What did I do? So yeah, I mean, they're there. They have the expertise to help you navigate through whatever this is. And it's not a sign of weakness at all.
Me, it's a sign of strength.
Exactly. To be able to make that appointment, go there. And now you don't even have to leave your house. You can sit on your couch at home and do an appointment online, and nobody has to see you, in the office or anything. So
I haven't had the opportunity to use a therapist, but I feel like that I have been a therapist in so many ways. And, I'm going through a situation right now that I feel like I'm a therapist. But anyway, so now that relationship is behind you, and that you're moving, you're an empty nester, and the only companionship you have now is the four-legged of yours. So what about dating? So
oh Lord.
And how was that for you? And when did you start? And what did the kids think about it?
Oh Lord. It's pretty awful. I remember when my friends were telling me, you need to get back out there, and they were telling me about online dating, which I had never done. And it's difficult because the last person I dated, of course, was my ex-husband. And when I met him, I was in college, no kids, so I was like, so dating in your 20s with no kids, no mortgage, is very different than dating in your 40s with a full-time job and bills to pay and then kids. And so I dated one guy about probably about a year and a half after I was separated. And it was funny, and I think it was a little difficult for my daughter to accept. My son loves everybody, so it was great. But I realized, I think I jumped into it too soon. I remember what happened was that Easter break, my kids had gone to their dad's for spring break, and it was the first Easter. I usually spend Easter with my mom, and I was like, so I was alone. I did have a friend come over for Easter, but I was just like, I don't have anybody now. And I was like, and I just got this picture in the future of, the kids growing up and on their own, and I don't have anybody. And I was like, I got to get out there. I got to find somebody. So I guess I sort of panicked. And what I realized, though, is I wasn't ready to date because I was really enjoying my time by myself. And I remember just thinking, I go to work every day and I would come home, and then I'd have the kids, and then, I'd have them all weekend. And then on the weekends when I didn't have the kids, I would spend it with, this gentleman. And I was like, I don't have any time to myself anymore. And I was like, I got to give something up. And I was like, I can't get rid of my job, not getting rid of my kids. So I guess, he's got to go. So, yeah. So I was like, I realized I wasn't ready to, and I was okay with being single. I was enjoying, having the remote to myself and watching whatever corny show I wanted to watch without anybody asking me, why are you watching that? So, but from that, I've met a few guys and gone on some dates. It's very tough, though. I don't know if it's online dating has opened up so many more opportunities for people that nobody wants to really commit. There's always, might be something else better out there. So it's been difficult. So I sort of taking the focus off of it. And I'm like, you know what? If I meet someone, good. If not, I keep saying I think I'm good until I'm in my mid 70s, and then I just want someone around in case I fall out, and they can call somebody. But
Yeah.
right, yeah, call somebody. But until then, I think I might be okay. I've got good friends, and we like to travel and go places. So I just try not to obsess about it, because it'll drive you crazy, and it put you in a situation you shouldn't be in because you're feeling desperate.
I am so glad you say that, because for so many of us single people, it is difficult for us to be alone. So it's always having to be something going on around you, or being in the presence of someone. And sometimes we make mistakes and end up with the wrong person. But there is a verse in the Bible that says, "He that findeth a wife findeth a good
thing."
Pretty soon we're going to be doing a retreat and a breakfast on the true value of a woman. You're designed for greatness. And I think finding that place where you can be comfortable with being by yourself, being with you. And so sometimes that's real difficult for us. But one thing that I do know is just hearing your story here is such an inspiration for other women that are going through similar things in their lives also. And how do you envision yourself being able to empower those women and support, those other divorcees and single moms on their journey?
You gotta lean on God. Definitely make sure that you are leaning on Him and talking to Him, and listening, listening to Him. Because there was I had a situation not that long over the summer, actually, with my daughter, and because she's been doing really well, but we kind of got into it the way we used to when she was in her early teens. And I just remember I had dropped her off at work, and it was really bad, and I got home, and I was near tears, and I remember sitting on my bed, and I was like, God, I cannot do this again. I was like, I need help. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I pulled myself together, and then I had to go pick her up, and we got in the car, and she was like, I want to apologize for the way I spoke to you. And like, that had never happened before. And I was like, and then she said, but this is how I felt. And, this, I wish that you wouldn't do this. And I was like, thank you, God. Like, I was like so excited. And because I was like, I thought she was going to get in the car, and it was either going to be full attitude, and or we're going to get back in it. And I was just like, I almost started crying again. And I was like, God, you are so fast, and you definitely listen. So He's there. He knows what's going to happen even before you do. And so just ask Him for help. But just always keep the lines of communication with your kids open. So many times we just want to say, well, you're a kid, just do this. But a lot of times, depending on your kid, if you can find a way to explain the rules or the reasons for something, and sometimes they feel like, well, we shouldn't have to do that. But that helps to, let them know that you consider them, intelligent and mature enough to handle a conversation instead of just being talked at. So just try to, again, I mean, at the end of the day, you're still a parent. So, what you say goes. But if you can at least try to talk to them and at least listen to what they have to say, even if it's still going to be a no, or, I can't do that, but let them be heard, and take care of yourself, find those times to step away and do what you like to do.
You're preparing them for life also. You're preparing them for adulthood and want them to be able to think, logically and concretely. So this opens up your lifestyle now opens up a world of possibilities for you. And you're rediscovering your own passions and your own dreams and everything. So what are some of the goals and aspirations that you have right now for your life?
I do want to start by event planning business. So I'm working on an additional certificate right now for that, because I want to focus mostly on corporate and large group events, not so much personal events. So I'm working on that. And I want to travel a lot. I want to go places I haven't been before. And yeah, I love the idea of experiencing different cultures and going different places. So that's really, and I know it sounds maybe kind of basic, but that's at the top of my list, is to get out there and go places. And when I can, take my kids, because it's nice for them to see other areas. But going by myself too, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Well, that is so great, and that's so wonderful. And I just love your positive attitude about everything. And I heard you talk mention several times about your dependency on God. So tell us how you keep that positive outlook, and what that relationship, with that spiritual relationship that you have with the Maker.
Yeah. I try to, I do. I talk to him every day. Try to get into the word every day. I'm not going to say that I do, but at least read a devotional or a scripture, because, and I love those devotionals because they always seem to be right on time. And, if the book is made for, those printed books are made for everybody, but the ones you read that day always seem to hit right where you need it to. But I try to remind myself a lot. I think a lot about everything he's done for me, like the situation with my daughter, or just, how he got me through a divorce and my mom's death in the same year, and so I remind myself, he did this, this is what he did for me, and he's going to always keep being there for me. And, and even when I was angry with him, after my mom died, I was, I told him, I was like, I don't understand why you did this. I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't ready for it. But he got me through that too. So just remembering, writing down and remembering the ways that he's brought me through and the things that he's done for me, it lifts you up, and it's like, he's not going to stop doing that. It's not a one and done. So, so that's really what kind of helps keep me connected to him. And then just knowing that he's watching over my kids, even though they're adults now, they're still, I see them as babies, and, I worry about them every day. So, or try not to. So, I ask for his, his protection and, coverage over them every day.
I know you were so funny when the kids were both going off to school, and an empty nester. I tell you, like you mentioned earlier, all your life and most of your adult life, all of your adult life, you have been taking care of someone, whether or in relationship with someone. And, if you got married right out of college or started dating this one person right out of college, and married, and, 15 years into this, and your mom and your all of this, and then all of a sudden, everything and everybody's gone. Hello. Hey, what do I do with me now? So
exactly.
It's just it's just wonderful to see how God is navigating all of these things in your life, and it's leading you to really be able to connect with those things that He's already planned for you. One of my favorite scriptures is Ephesians 2:10, that we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do great works, which He's already planned for us. And you mentioned earlier that He knows our thoughts even before we think them. So He's got great things for you. So what are maybe 2 or 3 things that you would want to have our listening audience to really walk away with?
Know that God has a plan for you. You are here for a reason and a purpose, and He is in everything that happens in your life. So nothing that's happening to you is random or out of control. He's going to make a way to use even the bad things that you go through for something positive. Forgive yourself and love yourself. I read a quote one time that said, if you were asked to name everything that you love, how long would it take you to name yourself? And yeah, that's something, I probably would never have done that. So learn to love yourself exactly the way you are. I mean, there's always something that we want to improve on or, change, but overall, God made you and God doesn't make mistakes. So you are lovable and He loves you. I don't know about a third one. But just, I don't want to say like embrace what comes because it's going to be hard, but you're going to get through it. You will get through it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You guys heard this, and I love that. Love yourself, forgive yourself, and embrace whatever, because God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And I am reminded that throughout the Bible, God gave new names to many of the people there. Abram was changed to Abraham. Sarai was changed to Sarah. Saul to Paul, Jacob to Israel. So, what would you say that your new name would be? What would your new name be?
Honestly, I really like my name. And I think, though, my name would be Aubrae. But again, it's not Aubrae mom. It's not Aubrae wife. It's not Aubrae daughter. So I feel like my name is just Aubrae now, and I'm allowed to just be myself. There is still some responsibility as a mother, but I get to just be whoever it is that God wanted Aubrae to be. And I'm not answering to a husband or kids or, whatever else, a job or whatever. I'm feel like I'm positioned to where all of those distractions, I guess you could say, are gone. And I can really focus on listening and learning to what God wants me to do, what He's sent me here for, outside of being a mom and a wife. What was the purpose?
What would you say your purpose is?
Well, that's what I'm figuring out. Yeah, so I'm on that journey. But I know that planning events is something that I'm passionate about, no matter how I try to get away from it. So I feel like there's something there. So that's why I think is where I'm at right now. I'm positioned to be able to listen and hear exactly what this second part of my life, the purpose is, outside of being a wife and a mother. So I feel like now I'm just Aubrae, period.
That is so beautiful, because that is what we're supposed to do. It's just, it's just be. And so many times when somebody asks us the question, well, who are you, or what are you, we start describing, our job. I'm a this, or I'm a mom, like you say, or I'm a wife, or I'm, but who are you? Who were you created and designed to be? And I think that one of the things that a lot of times we miss is that we are really here to praise God and give and honor. And we do that by doing the things and using the gifts that He has given us. And part of that is what you have just done today. Your story is going to really resonate with so many people. And I say that all the time to people. And that's why I enjoy doing this podcast, is because your story is not just your story, it's his story. And we are part of his story.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this so beautiful. So I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your heart and just sharing your journey with us, and just blessing so many people that are out there. So if someone would want to contact you or to hear more about what you're doing, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
My email address, I can give you that, is it's Aubrae, A-U-B as in boy, R-A-E 74 @gmail.com.
Okay. And do you have a Facebook or Instagram page?
I do. My Instagram is Lionfall, which I know is weird, but it's named after my kids. My son's name is Daniel, from Daniel and the Lion's Den. My daughter's name is Autumn, which is also another name for fall. So, I'm at Lionfall on Instagram. Oh. And I guess you can just search my name on Facebook. I don't know what the handle is for that.
So. To me. Now that's supposed to be me saying that, but
right. I'll just get on there.
But Aubrae, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And so for those of you that are listening in on this podcast, if anything that was said today or shared today, if that really made your heart jump or your heart sing, please make sure that you share it with someone that you may know that could benefit from this episode also. And again, thank you, Miss Aubrae, my friend, my partner in crime. And those of you that are listening out there, thank you once again for listening in. And I will see you on the next episode. In the meantime, peace. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The best gift that you could give me is to share this podcast with family and friends. And don't forget to review it. That way, this podcast will grow organically. If you need to reach out to me, please check out my Facebook page, DM me there, or you can email me at godskow@gmail.com. We have upcoming Bible studies that we would love for you to join us in, or if there is a guest or someone that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, please let me know. We are here to work together to realign our lives. Until the next episode, take care, and I look forward to sharing more and more with you as we realign our lives. Peace until next week.